No viewer. Single viewer. Cool. Oh, there's more of us. Great. Uh, Today I want to talk about some bands because we have a lot of time apart from the necessary essential workers that I salute you if you found time to watch this crappy live stream. But the rest of us all over the world, we have plenty of time, so I think we can put it into a good use. And as I found for past 5 weeks, there are marvelous ways of wasting time, and I thought that one of pretty cool ways of wasting time is actually. Oh, thank you, Michael. One of the greatest ways is trying to improve or maybe working on stuff that I thought that would usually take too much time or not be as rewarding because I had a gigging schedule, I had my I had my household chores to do, and I usually really had enough time to work on certain things. And I think that as the whole world's pretty much slowed down for a while, uh, it's a good time to uh, work and rethink how to make the guitar sound in a particular way. And for me, uh, from the very start, almost 20 something years ago, I've been given advice from my only guitar mentor that I ever had, uh, which interestingly overlapped with my previous experience because I started playing piano, then I went to music school and played tenor saxophone. And as possibly most of you know, one of the essential exercises for woodwinds and for brass instruments is to play long notes to get the control of the tone because it's very direct. The apparatus is essential in getting the right tone. And it made me think that, because I played the guitar at the same point, uh, oh, thanks, guy. I really appreciate that. Uh, so I got this idea that if the horn players work on their tone and the control of the way how the instruments sound, why can't guitars do that? Guitar players. And it turns out they do. that uh, the guy that I took lessons with, he was coming from the jazz world, but a couple of years later, I found some old Steve Vai articles from, I don't know, one of the guitar magazines, where he basically elaborated on the same concept of playing long notes on a guitar. Although Steve Vai's approach was kind of highly spiritual, and I'd say it was borderline meditation exercise just to play a single note for 5 minutes or maybe even 3 minutes. And it's going to be the longest 3 minutes you've ever encountered because you're playing just a single note. And after a while, you're trying to really connect with what's coming out of the instrument, and you try to apply some tiny little variations like vibrato, slow vibrato, vibrato that starts slow but is being made a little bit higher, a little bit at a higher rate. Different vibrato techniques. So along the fret, or like a classical guitar, along the neck. But that was something possibly that I didn't really find too appealing until I started working on articulation, because I always was wondering why some players got this magical factor that make them sound like they sound. And of course, apart from seeking for the right gear and right settings and trying tweaking string gauges and action height and pickups and everything in the signal chain, uh, some time ago I just started working on uh, getting the same pitch in various ways. And one of the cool things that I really like that possibly uh, breathes plenty of life into simple melodies is just approaching the notes and their pitches from below with different amount of bending involved. And I got a couple of simple exercises, and again, as we have plenty of time, I assume, this is something that might take a while to master, and it's, I'd say, volatile. If you don't do it on a regular basis, it just kind of fades away. But I have a couple of simple exercises that I really like that are both, I'd say, relaxing and musical at the same time. So sometimes you can find them inspiring, even if you just want to get certain tone. These are the exercises that build a great connection with the instrument, because suddenly, instead of just, okay, let's fret the note, let's pluck the note, boom, I take no responsibility for the ringing note because it's done. I'm off, right? Same with open strings. I can put the guitar down, it will do its thing. And these things that I'm about to show are exactly the opposite. You have to be very careful, you have to be on the note, and everything is in your hands. So let's start with something very simple. My favorite starting point is C on 3rd string on 5th fret, because this is kind of like a geometric middle of the neck. I mean, it's in my in my field of view. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's the middle of anything, but this is like a, when I look at the neck, it's halfway. Although it's, this is the halfway point of the string, obviously 12th fret, but this is like a really good point of reference. I mean, the way I hold guitar, it's also very natural. If I put my hands, in a relaxed manner, my index finger lands kind of on the 5th fret, on the third string. Okay, so let's get to the exercise. The slower we do it, the better, because it's all about playing slow. This is possibly one of those videos, how to play really, really slow. And let's start with this simple C note, but we'll get the pitch of the C note by fretting B on the 4th fret and bending it half step up. And the first, like a first phase, first step of the exercise is to play B and bend it to the target note, to the note C. So just to have a pitch reference, just to get the reference, I play my target note first, just to tune my ear, because otherwise I can overshoot or undershoot the note. There's no way of making me that I'm sure that this is the right pitch that I'm targeting, right? Until I tune my ear, my perception of the pitch. So this is C. Again, fretted note, 4th fret, bend half step. And this is exact tempo that is meant to be played in. It can get even slower if your guitar sustains longer. It's even better. What I would possibly suggest that on this guitar, it's strung with 10 to 46 regular 12 hours, but this is a good starting point. Just a single pitch. Okay, this is my reference, my bendy note, again, my reference, my bend note. And because it's just a half step, I usually like to split it onto separate fingers. So I play with index finger. I can add vibrato at certain stage, but there are a couple of variants that we'll get to. First is just to get the pitch right and build this sort of muscle memory, this sort of reflex that to get this to this particular pitch, I put this amount of force. I don't overthink it. It just happens after a while. I don't have to approach it in a conscious way. It's more about reacting and adapting to what's going on. So this is my C. Second phase is to play the bent note without the reference of the pitch. So this is my C. Then I can add a gradual vibrato. Yep. My phone just told me that I'm low on battery. I'll have to plug it in at some point. Okay. Now to make it more interesting, we'll go up the major scale from C to C on a single string. So the idea is C. Now to D, and D is a whole step band. So I played with the index finger, but if it's like a new thing for you to bend notes, you can play with ring finger or your pinky. Ring finger preferred. It's a little bit easier to get a proper rotation of the forearm and wrist. So this is my D, E, F, G, A, B, and half step to C. So it's a half step bend, whole tone bend, another whole tone, half step, whole, 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 and half. And there's a certain pace at which I bend the note, so it's not immediate. It's gradual. Because at this point I don't want to overshoot the notes. Okay, this was like a first concept that we're gonna take from, and of course with every finger. So with ring, with middle, and the last thing is with just index finger, and this is the hardest one. Another important thing is that because we're moving the string sideways, and it's in the middle of the neck, it's close to the center line of the neck, we have to keep other strings from ringing. And the way I do it is for first and second string, I just keep my index finger flat, so it touches first two strings so they don't ring. And for the wound strings, for fourth, fifth, and sixth string, I just mute with my palm. but depending on the situation, sometimes I use my fingers to dampen the top strings from ringing. So I just keep them on the strings that I don't want to ring. So it's it's kind of that's the position of the hand. And whenever I need to play on the second string, I just let one of the fingers go. Uh, okay, so that was like a first phase, first attempt. Second thing is to uh, go back and forth between bent and released note, but again in the musical fashion. So something that is an exercise, but could also be like a phrase from a tune. So what I would do, and it would be uh, play the bent note, release, and back to the bent note, and let it ring for a while. And this guitar has almost no sustain in upper positions, but I don't mind. It was very cheap. uh, so we had this sort of simple short phrases for every note of the major scale. So it was B, C, B, then it was D, C, D, E, D, E, and so on. So we're using C major scale for these for this series of exercises. Uh, Another thing is to start with a pre-bent note, but without gradual bending. Oh, greetings! So I'll pre-bend the note to the pitch, and then release and bend it back. So the idea is to build this sort of reflex that will allow us to get to the pitch before we hear it. So this is the tricky part because it's all about muscle memory, and it's also specific to the string gauge and even sometimes to the guitar. So the amount of force that we put is simply based on what may come out as a pitch. But after a while, our connection between our hearing brain and the motorics technique of the guitar comes together. So it's not that impossible as it seems. So this is my reference. I was sharp at first. Okay, so there it was. I think it was possibly Jim Campilongo and was it which of the fusion guitar players that also proposed this kind of idea of pre-bending the notes but spot on the pitch. So there is There is no wobbling. There's no vibrato. It's like straight on the note, straight on the pitch, right before we even plug the note. Uh, and what is pretty great about this exercise is that at all times, right now, I control everything about this note. I have to listen because it's no more, just trigger and go home. Right, there it is. It's pre-band. It's fourth fret, but I got the pitch of C note. Now another idea that I like to practice around is based on a little bit more advanced stuff, because this is pretty much like the key concept of targeting particular note of the scale with a pre-band note and just get two in the price of one. Really, I'm in the same position, right? This is my D on the 7th fret. It's one or the other. I can flawlessly change the pitch between two of those, but also it gives me a great tool, which is adding chromatics to my major scale. So between those two frets, we have three notes, right? D, D sharp, E, and then E, E flat, D. I'll highlight 4 notes. Okay, and harmonic naming doesn't count, right? They're same pitches. It doesn't matter what their names are. So right? So here I got the chromatics, and again it's this same type of connection between the tone that I have. Actually, this is usually what most of the players mean when that they got tone in their hands. Is that amount of control. That I can't let it go. If I let it go, it won't happen, right? I made this note happening from the very start, from the first pluck till the end, right? So it also gives this sort of vocal quality, which makes it very natural. I mean, our voice is controlled in a very similar manner. I mean, we stretch muscles in here to change pitches, but there's no absolute reference how much. Okay. It's almost like controlling human voice. I mean, we stretch something until we get the note that we are looking for, right? So diving deeper into the same concept of targeting notes from the bands, something that I really like is going way beyond, way beyond just a whole step band or 2 frets. And I think that the good step is just to discover how far your guitar and your technique allows you to go. And in my case, for this particular set of strings, I can bend from this G on 12th fret up to C. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets. So right now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 notes from a single fretted note, and this is quite a range. It's quite useful thing because first of all, usually, yeah, pretty much that's very Gilmoreish. I mean, David Gilmour kind of brought this kind of bands into uh, into like general perception of what guitar can do, uh, and possibly, of course, there were guys that put lighter strings on the guitars before Gilmour, uh, but it was usually more of a blues and rootsy inspired, and Gilmour was possibly one of these guys that made it in a very very clean, very articulated way, and for me, the idea behind these bands most of the time is trying to emulate lap steel and pedal steel guitar, because again there are lines on the fretboard but no particular pitches. And speaking of lap steel, uh, one of my absolutely favorite songs, and also one of the songs that I'm getting asked the most to play, one of my top orders usually, uh, is Sleepwalk by Santo and Johnny. And it's a tune that possibly every guitar player from every generation took a take on. I mean, all my heroes had their rendition of the tune. So, in no particular order, Brian Setzer had one, uh, Chet Atkins played one, Les Paul played a version of Sleepwalk. Uh, obviously, Joe Satriani with Robert Fripp on one of the albums even did a very straightforward version of the tune, and plenty of guys just took this tune and played it on a guitar, although it was originally played on the lap steel. Uh, and trying to emulate lap steel tone is something that I usually tried to achieve on a guitar. So this idea of approaching the note from below and bending it up is kind of coming from that point. But speaking of Sleepwalk, this yep, Brian Setzer. And so on. Great version with great harmonies and great substitutions, and please stand by. Okay, so extreme bands for a simple. The melody of Sleepwalk is very simple, right? It's something that you can play with a single finger. Right? But what makes it beautiful is that, like most melodies that stick with a listener and stick with players, is that you can make it beautiful by putting the right sound and the right articulation on it. And it's I think most of the guys, because I'm a sucker for a good melody. I mean, I'm a huge Dwayne Eddy fan. I love Hank Marvin and uh, Roy Buchanan, another guy who could deliver the melody. Jeff Beck, these guys. Uh, I mean, there's a huge power of single note and simple melodies that are very very vocal, and Sleepwalk is one of these. I mean, it's such a robust tune, and I always liked that, but I was never aware how huge impact it has on everyone, because uh, I know players of every generation that whenever I play it, it seems like everyone enjoys it. Like somehow everyone feels some way of connecting the tune. right? So either original guys who heard the original recordings back in the 50s, uh, people from UK who got that secondhand from the Shadows, because Shadows had also their rendition. Uh, People getting into rockabilly and hearing Stray Cats version with Brian Setzer, and then later with Brian Setzer Orchestra. Shredders who came across Joe Satriani record, and it's quite incredible, you know, how huge impact this. Well, and obviously guys like me who basically were like 8 years old when La Bamba came out, the movie, and I mean that's basically the movie that got me into rock and roll, guitar, and aviation at the same time. Yeah, that I mean it's a fantastic, great tune, and I absolutely love playing it, and I have my ways of playing it and getting the sound. So from something as basic as playing this melody with every note bending up. And so on and so forth. Simple idea, and possibly the sound that I would go for would be a bridge pickup, because usually on a whoops, on a lap steel the string length is shorter. There are higher gauge strings because of the shorter scale length, but the pickup is usually closer to the bridge. So it kind of it kind of balances it out. So it's not as bright as the bridge pickup on a Strat, for example, but it's kind of in the ballpark. So. In this case, I just did nothing above the whole tone band, but of course we can stretch it way up, just starting on a G note of the third string, 12th fret. So first two notes. Then it's bend and release from G to C. Then from F to A flat, G. So sorry about that. Okay. So three notes that I have in this phrase: F, G, and A flat, and back. And there are so many ways to articulate those three notes with just the single little bend. I think that this is one of the greatest things, to find this way to put your own voice into the tune that's been played like, you know, billion times in every place on the planet. That I can do this F G A flat, just fretting a thumb, F and the G fretted, A flat bend, and back. I can I can pre-bend A flat, release. I can do G gradual bend for more dramatic effect. I can use the minor third bend, just holding single note F. And here's another palette of possibilities. I can pick every note. I can pick just first note. I can play the first one, bend. So again, and this guitar to settle down a little bit. And the original part that was played as a harmonic on the lap steel. This there are a couple of ways of dealing with that. I liked playing pinch harmonics, but depending how loud is the rhythm section, sometimes it might not work that well. But something that I started doing recently is just it's the idea is of playing G, A, E, and B natural. Yep, sleepwalk. So I play 12th fret, whole step, 12th fret on the first string, and then instead of playing second string on 12th fret, that would give me resulting in the notes that I'm looking for, I just bend the G string even further. So, and the the idea of like getting to know how far it is possible to bend the notes, it came from certain experimentation. And for this particular gauge of strings, which is like possibly the most popular being used on a guitar, 10 to 46, I usually start with 12th fret and I see how far can I go, how far can the string travel along the fret that is comfortable and practical. So for G string, it's up the fourth, so 5 semitones. For B string, it's also up the fourth, but it requires more force, because the idea is that like the end point that I feel that's okay, that's enough, is basically the end of the fretboard. So for G string, I have less of a travel along the fret. Now, second string. And the thing is that to get to the stop E, I'm almost run out of space on my fretboard, so it's right. I mean, basically, these 4 strings won't allow me to go any further. Now, for the first string, there's a trick because basically it won't handle anything above minor third. It will break. I tried. I took one of my scrub guitars. I had certain certain spare strings for 25 and a half inch scale of a guitar, and I tuned them as high as possibly I could before breaking, and basically I could reach G, which is a minor third. So anything above is a risky territory. It just might break. Let's assume that minor third is an upper limit. So this is minor third, so it's four frets. This is 5 frets on second string, and on third string it's 7. With D, A, and E string, it's a little bit trickier because we'll have to bend in the opposite direction. So for D, it's the practical is minor third, practical range. So here we have for E string, it's getting wacky, and the problem is that usually when we have when we want to use parallel bands of any sort, things will get a lot harder to control, because what I really like is to use this sort of parallel bending with the underlying chord that is ringing there. So simple idea of bending back to the notes. I'll elaborate on this kind of playing at some point, possibly tomorrow, and I'm so grateful to see all of you around here, because if we're okay to do the live stream tomorrow roughly at the same time, I'd like to touch on maybe even a more important topic for me as a guitar player. The best way to make you and me better player, that is impossible to sell. It's so unflashy and it's so unattractive that nobody proposes it as a best and easiest method to learn how to play the guitar, because it takes some work, but it's definitely worth it. So I guess I'll sell the farm tomorrow. Thanks guys for showing up, really appreciate that. And 30-second thumb independence. Okay, 30 seconds. Yeah, because my battery is about to run out. Okay, thumb independence. The idea is that over these 8 notes, we have 8 notes in the bar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I play 4 notes in the bass, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and against every note that I have in the thumb, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I put a single note, whatever it is. It can be a chord, because right now we're focusing on a picking hand. So let's have an A major. So something's A major chord. I'm just thumping the thumb, and on one I'll plug the E string with my index finger. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Very easy thing. Okay, now I'm gonna offset. Thank you. Bless you too. Another thing. I'm offsetting the plucking finger 1/8 note, so it's gonna be in between my thumbs. So it's 1 and 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2, 3, 4. Now I'm pushing this note onto second beat of the bar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now 2 and, so it's gonna be between first, second and the third note. 1, 2. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2. And that's all there is. I mean, it's just pushing these notes and realizing that it's just like drum patterns. It's not really, it sounds independent, but it's actually just lining up notes together with a bass note or in between or combinations of those. There might be 2 notes. Well, 3 notes, 4, and then we just spread them onto the strings. One thing that we can add is alternating bass, because right now I just thumped. The next stage is to play the middle strings with a thumb, and the same thing. 1 at. 1 at. 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then once we're done, and of course, and 3, end of 3, 4, end of 4, combinations of these. Then we're adding the alternating bass line, so it's. So on every note of the bar, note plucked with finger. That's pretty much for the vintage style finger picking. That's where the independence comes from, really. I mean, that's like of course there are certain things, but once you got this nailed down, you're 80% there, pretty much. All right, thanks so much, guys, again, and see you tomorrow. Stay safe, and well, hoping to see some of us tomorrow and maybe some more, guys. Thank you so much. Brilliant. Bye.